and you don't even see it. Every day, you wake up thinking you are in control, that your choices, your voice, your presence carry weight. But if you strip away the illusions, you see the battlefield for what it is. Your supply lines are cut, your flanks are exposed, and your command is already compromised. You are not the general of your own life, you are the infantry, thrown forward as fodder. While others dictate the strategy, that is why you feel drained, unheard, dismissed. That is why your victories evaporate before you can even enjoy them. Because you keep losing power in the 7 deadliest places where it bleeds fastest. And you are too blind or too cowardly to acknowledge it. Machiavelli warned centuries ago that the greatest enemy of control is not your rival, not your oppressor, not the state. It is your own weakness, your own blindness, your own willingness to surrender power where you should fortify it. And that is exactly what you've been doing. You tell yourself stories to ease the sting. I'm being kind. I'm being patient. I'm not like them. But those stories are camouflage for surrender. In warfare, the soldier who pretends the wound is nothing is already dying. And in life, the person who pretends their surrender is virtue is already enslaved. The first deadly place power is lost, is in your tongue. Every word you spill without calculation is an arrow wasted. You think honesty makes you strong. You think transparency builds trust. But every time you open your mouth without strategy, you hand reconnaissance to the enemy. You give away your position. You give away your state of mind. You give away your weakness. And once your enemy knows where the crack is, they press until you break. Your belief that speaking your truth will set you free is naive. It does not free you. It chains you. Because truth is not currency unless you weaponize it. Machiavellian strategy dictates silence until timing makes the word a blade, not a confession. Your unmeasured speech is your first betrayal. The second deadly place is your trust. You hand it out like rations in a famine, starving yourself so others may eat. You imagine loyalty is reciprocal. You imagine kindness is remembered. But power does not work that way. Power is not a circle of warmth. Power is a hierarchy, a chain of command. And in a chain of command, trust is not given, it is enforced. Tested, surveilled. You trusted people who study you like prey, who catalog your habits like spies on patrol. And when the time came, they used what they knew to flank you. You keep wondering why betrayal follows you. It follows you because you keep supplying your enemies with maps of your territory. And then you cry when they invade. The third deadly place is your time. You squander it on distractions, on demands that yield you nothing, on the petty skirmishes of other people's wars. Look at your calendar like a battlefield. Do you see a disciplined campaign, or do you see chaos? Ambushes, wasted marches through empty terrain. Every hour you yield to someone else's command without calculation is a garrison abandoned, a fort burned to the ground. You tell yourself you are busy, that your exhaustion is proof of worth, but busy is the disguise of the defeated. The powerful are not busy, they are precise. They move when it matters, where it matters, and nowhere else. You scatter your troops across deserts with no water, mountains with no food, battles with no prize. And then you wonder why the enemy grows stronger while you are drained. The fourth deadly place is your emotions. You let them command you like drunken officers. Anger bursts. Fear retreats. Desire advances without cover. You tell yourself it is human to feel. Yes, it is. But Machiavelli would remind you, humanity is irrelevant on the battlefield. Strategy is not about what is human. It is about what secures survival. Your emotions are your enemy's best allies. They are the traitors inside your gates. They signal when you can be provoked, when you can be baited, when you can be controlled. And so long as they remain untrained, you are never the commander, you are the puppet. The fifth deadly place is your reputation. You have confused likability with respect. You have confused being seen with being feared. You want approval. You want applause. But applause is for actors, not generals. Every time you soften your edge to be liked, you dull the blade of your command. Every time you hide your ambition to seem humble, you smother the flame of your influence. And every time you let others define who you are, you surrender the propaganda war before it even begins. Reputation is not given, it is manufactured. If you do not control it, others will craft it as a weapon against you. The sixth deadly place is your discipline. You want results without attrition. You want conquest without the grind of training, supply, and order. But armies that win are not those who fight one glorious battle. They are those who march daily, drill relentlessly, and bleed in preparation, so they bleed less in war. Your lack of discipline is the reason you collapse under pressure. You wait until the attack begins to prepare your defenses. You wait until the famine strikes to ration supplies. You wait until the betrayal happens to question loyalty. You do not act like a strategist. You act like a panicked recruit. And so, you keep losing campaigns that should never have been close. The seventh deadly place, your will. Not your desire, not your ambition, but your will, the core that endures when all else breaks. This is the final battlefield, and the one most of you have already surrendered without realizing. You hand your will over to comfort. You bend it under the weight of opinion. You abandon it at the first sight of resistance. And once your will is gone, every other fortress falls, because the strongest strategy, the sharpest discipline, the coldest silence mean nothing if the will to enforce them is already dead. You think you've been unlucky. You think others had more resources, more allies, more advantages. Stop lying. What they had was discipline. What they had was silence. What they had was an iron will that you lack. The enemy is not luck. The enemy is your surrender. Repeated 7 times over. Every day. The cost of your blindness is simple: enslavement. You are already chained, though the chains are psychological, invisible, polished, so they look like jewelry. You say yes when you should say nothing. You trust when you should surveil. You scatter your time like coins in the dirt. You obey your emotions like orders from a tyrant. You trade respect for applause. You drift without discipline. And you surrender your will every time life applies pressure. This is why you are dominated. This is why you remain in the infantry when you should be at the war table. And here is the brutal truth. No one is coming to free you. No savior. No ally. No benevolent ruler. Power is not gifted. It is seized. And until you make the tactical choice to seize it, you remain what you are fodder. So the strategy is cold, but clear. Shut your mouth until words serve as weapons. Treat trust like ammunition scarce, rationed, never wasted. Guard your time like a fortress. Train your emotions until they obey command. Manufacture your reputation as if it were propaganda in hostile territory. Build discipline as if your survival depends on it, because it does. And above all, forge your will until it is unbreakable. Because once the will is iron, the rest follows. This is not about becoming cruel. This is not about abandoning humanity. This is about reclaiming command of your own war. Niccolò Machiavelli did not write for the comfortable. He wrote for the ambitious, the cornered, the desperate who refuse to remain prey. He mapped control because he knew most men will surrender without even realizing it. You already have. But now you see the map. Now you know the 7 deadly places where your power bleeds out. And now you have a choice. Either you continue as you are scattered, betrayed, drained, dominated, or you draw the line today. You seal the leaks. You reforge your command. You stop playing at life like a conscript and start waging it like a general. No compromise, no excuses, no delay, because on this battlefield, delay is death. You think you have control because you work hard. You think you are disciplined because you keep busy. But work without aim is wasted supply. Discipline without direction is marching in circles until exhaustion takes you. You confuse motion with command, but generals know better. The true campaign is not about movement. It is about decisive positioning, and you have been positioned, not by yourself, but by those who saw the cracks in your armor and used them to cage you. Look at how you hand over your tongue every day. You cannot endure silence. You rush to fill the void with chatter, with explanation, with self-disclosure. You reveal what is unnecessary. You declare your intentions before the arrow is even drawn. You call this honesty. You call this authenticity. But what you are really doing is broadcasting the blueprint of your fortress. When you speak without strategy, you arm others with intelligence against you. They know where your fear lives. They know which words make you flinch. They know how to provoke your pride. This is why they outmaneuver you. Not because they are smarter, but because you are louder. Machiavelli understood this. Silence is the cloak of command. The man who knows more than he says already controls the field. The man who says more than he knows is already surrounded. Now consider your trust. You live as though loyalty is natural, as though it flows like water from one heart to another. But loyalty is manufactured. It is cultivated, enforced, tested. You give it freely. You do not require proof. And so your allies collapse when pressure arrives. Because you mistook sentiment for steel. You believed promises. You believed kindness. And you were shocked when betrayal followed. Why shocked? You handed them your supply lines. You let them walk freely in your camp, knowing every corridor, every storage, every weakness. When they defected, it was not treachery. It was inevitability. And you were the one who supplied the inevitability. The third arena where you bleed is time. The most obvious battlefield. The most merciless. You tell yourself you lack power because you lack money. Allies. Recognition. No. You lack power because you treat time as if it were infinite. You pour it into distractions. You obey the summons of others who waste it. You surrender hours to conversations with no gain, tasks with no victory, rituals with no strength, and all the while, your enemy disciplines their time like a supply officer disciplines rations. They use minutes as blades, hours as shields, days as sieges. You use them as if they were sand, slipping endlessly through your hands. Every general knows. An army with infinite men but limited supplies will collapse. And you, with your infinite distractions and limited hours, are already collapsing. The fourth place, your emotions are not just a weakness. They are a spy working for the other side. Think of your anger, how easily it is provoked, how often it forces you to reveal yourself. Think of your fear, how quickly it paralyzes you, how it makes you retreat from the field before the first blow lands. Think of your desire, how it seduces you into alliances that weaken you, choices that trap you. Your emotions are not your identity. They are mercenaries, hired by whoever knows how to trigger them. And mercenaries never fight for you. They fight for whoever pays them in attention, validation, stimulus. Until you train them into submission, you are not commander. You are hostage, then reputation. This is the war of perception. And you are losing without even realizing the rules. You live for applause. Forgetting applause is the crowd's leash. You soften your strength to be liked. You hide your hunger to be accepted. You kneel before perception instead of bending it to your will. Power is not about being liked. Power is about being unavoidable. Respect does not come from kindness. It comes from presence, from consistency, from command. If others define your reputation, you are already conquered. The propaganda war has ended before you ever wrote your first line. Machiavelli knew rulers are not judged by morality, but by perception of strength. You keep asking to be loved. You should be demanding to be feared, or at the very least, respected. Discipline, the sixth point, is where the majority die. You think discipline means punishing yourself occasionally, forcing yourself into short bursts of rigor. No, discipline is the architecture of survival. It is the daily drilling, the endless sharpening, the attrition you endure to outlast. Armies are not forged in the moment of battle. They are forged in the repetition before battle, in the monotonous grind, in the sharpening of blades when no one is watching. You cannot command because you cannot endure the monotony of preparation. You want the victory but not the campaign. You want the triumph without the logistics. And so, every time war arrives, you are unprepared, scrambling, weak. Discipline is what makes generals invincible long before the first clash of steel. Without it, you are just another soldier waiting for the slaughter. And then, the final fortress, your will. Everything else falls when this falls. And yours is already brittle. You disguise it with ambition. You talk of goals. You dream of victories. But when resistance comes, you fold. Your will bends under rejection, under fatigue, under ridicule. You let the opinions of others cut it down. You let comfort weaken its walls. This is why you cannot sustain change. This is why your victories vanish. You had no iron will to guard them. You keep asking for motivation, for inspiration, for someone to push you forward. Understand this. The one who requires push is not fit for command. The general pushes others. The soldier must be pushed. Which one are you? Now you see the 7 fields where your power is lost. They are not mysteries. They are not curses. They are the same predictable fields every human bleeds on. Machiavelli's map is not new. It is eternal. The weak repeat the same mistakes across centuries. They talk too much. They trust too easily. They waste their hours. They serve their emotions. They chase approval. They lack discipline. And they surrender will. The strong, the rulers, the generals, they seal these leaks one by one until nothing escapes. That is why the world bends to them. That is why their commands echo long after their death. Do not fool yourself. The cost of remaining blind is slavery. You are already bound by invisible chains. You smile as you obey. You laugh as you are drained. You call it normal. You call it modern life. You call it balance. But balance is for the powerless. Balance is what you are offered when they want you to stay quiet. Balance is the disguise of chains. Power is never balanced. Power tilts the field. Power bends the chain of command. Power takes, enforces, secures. If you remain as you are, you will live chained until the end. And the worst part, you will call the chains your choice. So now comes the demand. Enough illusions. Enough excuses. Enough surrender disguised as virtue. Your words must become weapons. Your trust must be rationed like ammunition. Your time must be drilled into formation. Your emotions must be shackled under command. Your reputation must be forged like iron propaganda. Your discipline must be merciless. And your will must be unbreakable, or you will remain broken. This is not advice. This is not encouragement. This is command. You are either a commander of your own life, or you are a slave in someone else's. There is no third option. You do not get to drift. You do not get to linger in mediocrity. The battlefield does not allow it. Either you enforce power, or you lose it. Either you exercise control, or you are controlled. Niccolò Machiavelli mapped this centuries ago. He warned of these leaks. He showed rulers how to seal them. You are not a ruler. Not yet, but you can be. If you refuse to see the map, you remain prey. If you follow it, you begin to command. The choice is made in this moment. Either you continue scattering your strength, or you gather it like an army preparing for war. There is no softness in this. There is no consolation. The time for comfort has ended. What remains is strategy. Discipline. War. Now decide. You bleed power because you treat life as conversation, not as war. You wander into every day with no map, no reconnaissance, no battle plan. That ends now. If you want to stop being fodder, you must restructure your existence as a general restructures his army. Each of the 7 deadly places where you lose power must become fortified strongholds. If one falls, all will fall. If each is fortified, no enemy can breach you. The first stronghold, your tongue. From this moment, every word must serve a purpose. You will not speak to relieve silence. You will not speak to prove yourself. You will not speak to expose what should remain hidden. Words are not ornaments. They are weapons. And like weapons, they must be stored, sharpened, and deployed with precision. When you are questioned, you will not explain, you will measure. When you are provoked, you will not defend, you will observe. The silence you keep will unnerve those who feed on your speech. The silence will force them to reveal themselves. Information flows not to the one who speaks, but to the one who waits. Your discipline of silence becomes a trap, and when the time comes, you will release words like arrows, not in streams, but in fatal volleys. Machiavellian strategy dictates: never broadcast your intentions. Let them speculate. Let them misjudge. Let them march into ambushes built by their own assumptions. The second stronghold, trust. Trust must become a ration, not a gift. No ally is loyal until tested. No oath is reliable until pressure proves it. You will stop believing in loyalty as sentiment. You will treat it as supply that must be enforced. To test loyalty, you must pressure it deliberately. You must observe how they act when gain tempts them. You must watch what they reveal when they think you are absent. You must give small permissions and record how they handle them. Allies are like troops. Some fight, some desert, some betray. You cannot prevent betrayal entirely, but you can predict it. You can delay it, and you can weaken its damage by never giving full access to anyone. This is reconnaissance turned inward. You spy on your own camp, because your camp is where betrayal always begins. You no longer complain about betrayal, you anticipate it. And in anticipating it, you prevent your enemies from ever reaching your core. The third stronghold, time. Treat your calendar as a battlefield. Every hour is a soldier. Every day is a regiment. Where you send them determines whether you win or starve. You must stop scattering your troops on pointless marches. No more casual distractions. No more mindless consumption. No more lending your time to anyone who summons you. From this point forward, you assign your hours like a general assigns elite troops. Critical missions first. High-value alliances. Second, everything else either delegated or discarded. This will feel ruthless. It is because the undisciplined general starves his army in wasted marches. And you are no longer permitted to starve your army. You will set hard boundaries, and you will enforce them with cold clarity. If others protest, let them. They are not commanders of your war. You are. The fourth stronghold, emotions. The spy within your gates must be brought to heel. You will stop pretending emotions are uncontrollable. They are controllable. They can be drilled like recruits until they obey orders. How? Observation first. You record your anger, your fear, your desire. You write them as if you were spying on an enemy. You study when they rise, when they fade, what triggers them. Then you build countermeasures. When anger rises, you do not act, you delay. When fear rises, you do not retreat. You advance with small, deliberate steps until fear loses power. When desire tempts, you do not indulge it, you ration it, train it, redirect it. This is psychological operations within your own camp. And soon, the enemy learns they cannot provoke you, cannot bait you, cannot move you with simple tricks. Your silence and steadiness become terrifying. They waste their energy trying to push buttons that no longer exist. And in that wasted energy, you win. The fifth stronghold, reputation. Stop living for approval. Approval is the crowd's leash. Reputation is not about being liked, it is about being unignorable. You must manufacture your presence with consistency, with clarity, with deliberate myth-making. You control the narrative, or the narrative controls you. This means you decide how you appear, and you repeat it until no rival can redefine it. If you want to be seen as relentless, you act relentlessly in every visible arena. If you want to be seen as formidable, you act formidable at all times, never breaking character in public. Machiavelli knew rulers survive not because they are moral, but because they are perceived as strong. You will stop apologizing for strength. You will stop softening your edges to please the weak. You will cultivate a reputation that others whisper about even when you are absent. This is propaganda warfare. You are not simply living, you are broadcasting power through every act. The sixth stronghold, discipline. Without it, all else is theater. Discipline is your supply chain, your drilling, your logistics. You must build routines that grind you into steel. You will wake when you plan to wake. You will train when you plan to train. You will execute tasks with relentless precision. You will do this not because it feels good, but because armies that skip drilling collapse in the field. Discipline is not passion. Discipline is not motivation. Discipline is attrition. You bleed in preparation, so you do not bleed in war. This will make you different from the masses, who chase comfort, who retreat when the grind arrives. Discipline is how you outlast them. Discipline is how you gain command, while others crumble. The seventh stronghold, will. This is the core. This is the command tent. If this falls, every other stronghold falls with it. Your will must be treated as sacred ground. Nothing enters that ground without inspection. You will no longer allow the opinions of others to penetrate your will. You will no longer let fatigue rewrite your will. You will no longer let comfort erode it. The will is fed by endurance. You will endure rejection, ridicule, hunger, fatigue, and you will not break, because once your will is iron, every other fortress becomes unassailable. An enemy can provoke your emotions, and you will remain steady. They can isolate you, and you will remain unmoved. They can starve you, and you will ration. They can tempt you, and you will deny. The unbreakable will is the fortress no siege can breach. And once you possess it, you become untouchable. This is not philosophy. This is not self-help. This is strategy. This is war. Niccolò Machiavelli mapped it centuries ago. He understood rulers do not survive because they are kind, but because they seal the leaks of power others leave open. And now you see the map. 7 places, 7 fortresses, 7 opportunities to stop bleeding and start commanding. You may resist this. You may cling to softness, to ideals, to illusions of fairness. But hear this clearly. The battlefield does not care about fairness. It does not care about kindness. It does not care about ideals. It cares only about strength, control, and endurance. If you continue as you are, you remain fodder. If you seal the 7 deadly leaks, you become commander. That is the only divide that matters. So fortify your tongue, fortify your trust, fortify your time, fortify your emotions, fortify your reputation, fortify your discipline, fortify your will, and then step onto the battlefield no longer as prey, but as strategist, as general, as ruler of yourself. No one will hand this to you. You must seize it, and once you seize it, never surrender it. You imagine you have time to change. You imagine you can delay the war, but the war is not waiting. It is already around you. Every day, you remain unfortified. You are under siege. You feel it in your fatigue, your frustration, your quiet resentment when you realize how little weight your voice carries. That is not life being unfair. That is life stripping you of command because you refuse to claim it. Look at what happens when you lose your tongue to recklessness. You become predictable. Others learn your fears, your desires, your intentions. You are studied, not respected. Your words are stored like enemy intelligence reports. And then you wonder why others strike with precision. You gave them the map. You invited the invasion. The one who controls his tongue controls the field. The one who bleeds words bleeds power. Look at what happens when you lose trust to naivety. You welcome traitors into your gates. You treat promises as iron. You confuse friendliness with loyalty. And then, when betrayal comes, you collapse in outrage, as though you were not warned by 1,000 examples before. Machiavellian rulers assume betrayal from the start. They ration trust. They pressure test it. They know that loyalty untested is loyalty imagined. You, on the other hand, still cling to the fairy tale that loyalty is natural. And that fairy tale is why you remain the servant of those who are ruthless enough to test yours. Look at what happens when you lose time to distraction. Hours vanish into noise. Days disappear into obligations that yield no power. You think exhaustion is evidence of effort. But exhaustion without victory is simply proof of bad command. Your army has marched in circles. Your supply lines are gone. You mistake activity for achievement. And the truth is brutal. You are busy dying. The ruler knows that time is the only currency that cannot be replenished. That is why they wield it with cold calculation. Every hour is a blade. Every day is a siege. They win because they allocate time like a strategist. You lose because you scatter it like a child. Look at what happens when you lose emotions to chaos. You become a puppet. Others provoke. And you dance. Others frighten. And you retreat. Others entis. And you surrender. You believe you are human, and therefore justified. No, you are not justified. You are compromised. Machiavelli knew fear and anger were the levers of control. Whoever grips those levers commands you, until you seize those levers yourself. You are nothing but a marionette on the strings of enemies you cannot even see. Look at what happens when you lose reputation to approval seeking. You dull yourself. You weaken your image. You beg to be liked. And in begging, you lose respect. Approval is cheap. Respect is rare. Fear is even rarer. But only those who command, respect, or fear hold power. The rest fade into applause that means nothing. Applause that dies when the crowd finds a new spectacle. You are clapping for yourself, while your rivals are fortifying their fortresses. Look at what happens when you lose discipline to comfort. You collapse under pressure. You break when war comes because you trained for nothing but ease. You confuse motivation with mastery. You confuse desire with readiness. And then, when the campaign begins, you are scrambling while your enemy is already in formation. Armies do not win wars on battlefields. They win in drills, in supply chains, in daily grind. Discipline is what makes power sustainable. Without it, your victories evaporate as soon as they are earned. Look at what happens when you lose will. Everything else falls. If you surrender your will to opinions, to fatigue, to ridicule, then all your other fortresses, tongue, trust, time, emotions, reputation, discipline will eventually collapse. Your will is the command tent. When it burns, the entire army scatters. And make no mistake, the world is trying to burn it every single day. Your environment is designed to weaken your will through comfort, through ridicule, through fear, and you have let it succeed. You fold when pressure rises. You bend when challenged. You crumble when denied approval. This is the deepest betrayal, not by others, but by yourself. Now look ahead. If you continue as you are, what happens? Your words will keep betraying you. Your trust will keep feeding traitors. Your time will keep evaporating into dust. Your emotions will keep sabotaging your command. Your reputation will remain soft, forgettable. Your discipline will remain shallow, collapsing under stress. And your will shall continue to dissolve until you wake one day, realizing you were never commander, never general, never ruler. You were always infantry. You were always fodder. And your life was a campaign lost before it even began. This is the price of inaction. Slavery disguised as normal life. Chains disguised as choice. Weakness disguised as kindness. Exhaustion disguised as worth. You already know this. You feel it every time you submit when you should stand. Every time you apologize when you should command. Every time you retreat when you should advance. You feel it, and yet you lie to yourself to avoid the sting. That self-deception ends now. The cost of reclaiming power is high, but it is the only cost worth paying. It will require silence when you crave recognition. It will require distrust when you crave connection. It will require discipline when you crave comfort. It will require cold calculation when you crave emotion. It will require standing alone when you crave applause. And it will require enduring rejection, ridicule, and fatigue without breaking. This is the attrition that forges generals. This is the grind that births rulers. This is the campaign you must wage not against others, but against the part of you that has been surrendering since the beginning. You want freedom, then understand. Freedom is not given. Freedom is sized. You want control, then understand. Control is not inherited. Control is enforced. You want respect, then understand. Respect is not requested. Respect is commanded. And the moment you internalize this, the moment you act on this, is the moment you stop being prey. Niccolò Machiavelli once mapped this path, not to comfort the weak, but to awaken the desperate. He knew most men would rather remain blind. He knew most would surrender without realizing. He knew only a rare few would see the battlefield for what it is and seize control. You now stand at that threshold. You can remain as you are scattered, drained, dominated, or you can step forward, fortify the 7 deadly places, and become commander of your own war. This is your ultimatum. Seal your tongue, ration your trust, discipline your time, command your emotions, forge your reputation, grind in discipline, and above all, build an unbreakable will. Do this, and you become untouchable. Fail to do this, and you remain fodder until the end. The battlefield has no patience. The enemy is already advancing. You either fortify now, or you collapse. Choose, because indecision is already defeat.